What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video, and it's going to be another set of all leg days from this week. Just really trying to get ahead of all the different content I've got in order to get up to date with what's currently happening. And I've been sick lately, got real sick for the last few days, so if I sound sniffly or a little funny, that's probably why. And I think a lot of it was just seasonal allergies and seasonal cold. So just, let myself heal up. Was still training, missed about a day or so, but I'm okay now. But yeah, I would just want to really get to where I'm currently at training now. There's been some developments, some updates, and to really just kind of close out this ER to PR series and start a new one, a little bit more interesting, where we can do a little bit more. It's kind of focusing on the rehab and doing things like that. But we still got to get through all the work that we've done before. I just kind of want to show you, from start to finish exactly what happened, what's going on, so there is some sort of guidance going forward. But here you can see we're still going heavy-ish when it comes to the squats, and we're still using, these plates. They're not the calibrated ones. They're a little bit easier to get up, and that was kind of my logic for using them, which I've kind of mentioned before. Easier to grip, less heavy, so less likely to do any damage after the surgery. So at least in this workout, that's what I focused on, continued to do, and, just kept trying to make progress in some sort of way, which has been the name of the game so far, is just to be consistent with what I can be consistent with and then adjust for everything else. So SSB is still, our main movement, and then we're working around with other different ways to lift, and still trying to resemble some semblance of normalcy. So right now you can see I can really grip that bar, which is going to make stability a lot better. The more stable you are, the better squat you're going to have. So when I was doing it with the one arm, you're kind of cognizant of depth and exactly what you're doing, but I can really lock in with both arms, get the lats tight, internally rotate those elbows, get that shelf nice and tight, and have a little bit more confidence in the squat. And so just keep going, sets of 5 on stuff, just really sticking to my training methodology, which is do some strength stuff, do some hypertrophy stuff, and then other stuff in between. Just have some variety in the training so you're working through all rep ranges. And just to kind of show you, that you can do both, and then why not do both? Sometimes it's not always ideal just to train strictly heavy or strictly in the hypertrophy range. And I'm hoping that's evident throughout this whole entire, process that we're going through. And then on the belt squat here, using this as kind of the hypertrophy segment for squats. And I've been having difficulty hitting depth on here. It just feels like when I'm sitting back, where I'm getting that nice quad pump action, it just doesn't feel like I normally do on like a regular barbell squat where I can really sink it. And I think a lot of that just comes down to loading on the spine. It's easier to hit depth when there's a weight on your back to kind of reinforce that assistance into getting into the hole. But on the belt squat, though, it is kind of deceiving because if I am shooting from an angle that's below me, I'm not like at level with where I'm squatting. And so it looks a little weird from angles, but the quad pump I'm getting is pretty nice. And I'm really just trying to sit back and not really sink into the hole just because that weight is trying to pull me forward. So by loading the hips back and just breaking parallel, I can really get those quads activated. I mean, if you bottomed out on this thing, I feel like it'd be a little dangerous. The mechanism, the weights would most likely probably hit the floor. That's why I was doing kind of one of these supersets where I'd go heavy with the same weight and then switch the whole mechanism that I was using to get that extra, pump and stuff. And the pump was nice. And being able to, use this in addition to leg extensions, I feel like I got a really good quad workout. When I used to wear Oli shoes with the squats, you'd get an insane quad pump just because of the angle that your ankle's sitting at. And it can be kind of uncomfortable if you're not used to it. So you got to kind of play around, figure out what works for you. And that's, been the name of the game and trying to figure all this stuff out. I used to not like to belt squat. I felt like it was like too easy until I really understood how to use it. And now that I'm using it, it's a lot more, efficient and fun. And even the length of the chain can affect how you're going to have that workout. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but if you're constantly changing stuff, it's really hard to adapt. So I would try to find some form of content that is consistent, that you can follow, and then make those changes. But if you make the changes, you have to be consistent for a time being in order to get the same benefit from them. So you really just have to figure out what works best for you. And that's kind of why I've been messing with the unilateral and then the bilateral type of training, just to get in some variety and really make things, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more challenging. You don't have to do as much heavy weight if you're doing a unilateral exercise. So less weight to be moved, less stress, and especially, as I mentioned before, super useful on the leg press, where, instead of loading plate after plate after plate, you can really focus on the unilateral movement, the balance here. And I feel like my right leg is so much weaker than my left leg, so I can really help balance it out. So when I'm focusing on this lift here, I can use all my brain power to really guide that right leg and hopefully, remove some of those imbalances or like equalize the strength level there. And I don't know if it's more of like a mental thing or whatever, but just something I've always noticed when training. I've never been really good at unilateral like standing stuff. It takes a lot of strength and stuff for me to be able to do. I just don't feel balanced. I've never really had good balance standing. So to be able to train them in a context that's safer, with the leg press or with another type of movement is something that I think is super beneficial. Not everyone is going to have the good balance. It depends on how you're built, and I feel like I've got these really long legs and a big, thick upper body, so it just kind of throws off my equilibrium. And then we're going into day 2 legs here, so keeping this, animation going on until we get to the next set of videos. But surprise here, we're doing a new lift with the kilos. So I started doing the Hatfield squat as a way to kind of overload the squat, and it's been really humbling. So one of the tips I have is just to, grip the handles for leverages, and you can move the handles to where, the depth you want to hit is, or depending on your arm length. So it's taken some time just to kind of like be aware of where I am in the cage while I'm squatting. And then also getting used to having the weight just kind of sitting there, which it will do though, but it's going to push you, put a lot of stress on the trap, so you have to kind of coordinate that together and make sure that you've got a good tempo going. And these look good here. They felt terrible when I was doing them just because it's a new lift. And I found honestly that if I walk it out like a regular squat and then grab the handles, and that was just, from not having this weight on here, these look fine. So grab the handles, walk them out, and then basically lower myself into position nice and controlled. Figure out what depth you want to be at and kind of go from there. And not really doing high rep stuff on here, just kind of experimenting to see where I can be. And here, I tried just to get out directly from the rack, but you can kind of see the imbalance with the SSB there. If you can come out of the rack balanced, it'll make this lift a lot easier. And then obviously, you're not using 100% of your upper body to lift. You still want to brace and use your lower body. So we're going a little bit heavier here and just trying to get used to it. So you'll see me here just tempered and take my time. It feels really weird, honestly, when you first do it. That bar is going to stay, though, just because of the weights and everything and sufficient padding. But I was taking my time, and it feels so different. Like, if you think a front squat's going to push you forward, the Hatfield feels like it's doing even more. So you kind of have to actively drive that chest and upper back up. And it's going to take some getting used to, but I feel like this will be a nice, fun overload technique where I can put more weight on the bar, slow myself down, and then get used to that. Because if I keep doing variations of just the SSB with pauses or whatever, it's going to get mundane and boring. And I'd like to have another sort of mechanism to perhaps open other avenues of strength. And so a lot of people have recommended them. I've stayed away from them just because I thought you'd be able to slap on a bunch of weight. But in my humble opinion, I've been humbled by this, and I'm realizing now it's a lot harder than it makes itself out to be. And I'm not sure why. But just a couple angles here just to kind of show you that I'm just slowing myself down. And driving out of the hole is fine though. It's a mental feeling. Like it feels like I am not falling for it, but I'm kind of almost swimming through the lift. And I can feel a lot of stress and pressure on my traps and upper body. And for a while, my traps were getting sore after these workouts, and I was, impressed by that. And then a new exercise here, the Bulgarian split squat, which I wanted to keep these clips in here just to kind of show you that to coordinate this is not the easiest thing in the world. You kind of have to set something up and then use, the mirror to kind of figure out where you are in relation to the object you're trying to use. So higher rep stuff here. And like I said, this is the weaker leg, the right leg. So I'm really just taking my time. And if it's the weaker leg, I usually do it first. Just you'll have more energy for it. And then I'll take a little break. And then if you have to, use the support of the cage, whatever you have to get into position. And then you'll see here this leg moves a lot better. Just a lot more control, a lot more power generated. And it really is interesting to see the difference in how efficient one side is compared to the other. When you're constantly doing things together, you don't really notice. But, stuff like this will kind of bring out those weaknesses. And a lot of it could just be mental, but it is what it is. So you'll see here, you kind of just figure out where you are in relation to space, figure out what's comfortable. And you can also adjust the height of where my foot's at. And really just kind of figure all this out here. But you'll see just really dipping down in. And yeah, I could be doing these a little bit slower, but honestly, the first time doing them, I'm just trying to get the reps in, see how they feel, if I like them, and then kind of go from there. So this one I actually did the other side. I reversed it, did the weaker side last, which may not have been the smartest thing to do, but honestly, it doesn't look that much different. I think I'm a little bit further away in my stance than I was in the other set, so yeah, Bulgarian split squats. You'll find out if I keep them or not, keep watching the videos, but just for some variety, moved on to some unilateral stuff, which is pretty usual now, just to get the same muscles worked, but some sort of variation. And, it's a good reminder to keep things balanced. Sometimes you'll feel things firing differently. You might get a better pump in one leg compared to the other, so it might be something to be cognizant of your head and figure out, what can I do to get the similar result and reaction. So definitely ways to figure all this out, but you just have to experiment and kind of go from there. And then same thing here with the leg extension. I don't know what it is about the leg extension. It's always caused pain to my knees, but I've recently found a method that doesn't hurt as well, and it's mainly making sure that pad position is in a good spot, and then I'm actually driving my quads into the pad before I initiate the lift, so I'm not going from a cold dead stop, to a flexed, quad, if that makes any sense. Every machine's kind of different with different angles, and I've used other leg extension machines that didn't hurt as much, but there depends on what gym you're at. So day 3 here, and just kind of show you more things going on. We're back here on the SSB, and we're back here with the kilos now. So I'm using these consistently just because I can, just easier, doing some pauses here. And with these kilos now, you have to realize I'm starting at a higher level. Before with the other plates where they're 45-pound plates, it was 155. Now we're at 175 because these start off at 55 kg. So these are going to feel different. The weights are going to be denser, so it's going to change the movement. Just a different feeling, and then also if you haven't used them in a while. So pauses are usually a good way to kind of judge, feel the full blunt of the weight, and then, come out of the hole and see how you feel. And also to kind of taper your progress so you're not overshooting strength levels you may not be prepared for. But yeah, after the other 2 days of squatting, this is a lot, I'm not going to lie, but I need something during this time to keep me busy. I need something to work towards, and if I'm not moving in some sort of way, I just get, restless and bored. And so I want to do other things and just without trying to cause any sort of injury. So this is the variation that I've decided, and you can see me trying to really keep my upper back tight. I'm really trying to keep everything, textbook that you would for a squat, obviously, and it's going to vary based off mechanics, but you really just kind of have to go with the flow and use what works. And ultimately, if something is causing discomfort or you don't like it, then don't do it. Find another alternative. And that's mainly what this is about. With this high frequency of leg training, I'm really getting an insight into what I can handle, what I like, what I don't like, and how I want to progress forward with these other workouts going forward after the whole process is over. So, belt squat here, again, and nothing really different here. And really just sticking true with the same, principles I've kind of mentioned before, where we're doing the pauses, and then we'll drop back down, or, we'll decide how we're feeling on that day. So on these pauses, I just left them here. I didn't do any back offsets. I felt like the pauses were sufficient enough, and it's mainly about technique more than it is about hypertrophy or any sort of muscular goal here. It's to get a stimulus without, overloading everything and becoming fatigued and tired. And all this squatting and lower body stuff, especially during these colder months, I'm finding your knee joints will really act up and let you know how you feel. So you got to make sure you're stretching, you're doing your mobility, and ultimately, just taking care of yourself. So nothing is really deviating that much. I'm really just trying to focus on the principles that I've kind of laid out for myself, and just to be consistent, work my way through. If you can build a system of consistency when you have to transition to something new, it makes it so much easier. You've already kind of got that ingrained in you, and it's just about learning the new movements and then adopting whatever new training style that's going to be. And that could be like me, where you're just, you're coming back to doing the full body stuff throughout the whole week, and it's going to be a learning curve because you haven't done it in such a while. So you're going to have to recalibrate to different movements and different ranges of motion with different weights. And, it is what it is. So I've gotten efficient at doing these leg exercises during this time frame. So that's one less thing I have to worry about when I come back to the upper body stuff. And ultimately, you just have to determine, when you want to start doing this stuff, how you want to build your splits going forward, and, what you want your goals to be. If everything is strength related, you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to strength. You have to watch the programming, watch the fatigue when it comes to bodybuilding stuff, and you may have to cut a set here or two, and just really figure out what works for you. Nothing is one size fits all, and that's what this whole thing is about, is figuring out what works for you, doing it, and adjusting to get to the results that you want, whatever that journey may look like. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff, and you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.